Do you use the word maybe a lot? Do you possibly overuse it? Because I know I certainly do. Did you maybe want to check out that new restaurant this weekend? Yeah, could I maybe do the 3:30 time slot? Okay, yeah, I could start with this, and then maybe afterwards you could do that. In my mind, the word maybe is the perfect embodiment of what it means to sound unsure of yourself. And if you're clicking on this video, chances are that you're kind of like me. Kind of like me in that you often come across as sounding unsure of yourself, even when you feel confident in what you're talking about. But feeling confident doesn't always translate to sounding confident. And in this video, I'll be sharing a few tips that have helped me sound less uncertain and indecisive and much more confident and self-assured in what I say. Now, it may not really sound this way in these videos, but in my everyday conversations at work and in life, I've often felt like I lack conviction. I feel like a lot of my sentences generally end in upward inflections, like I'm putting an unnecessary question mark on the end of everything. I also tend to speak in somewhat ambiguous terms. I might say something like, oh, I think it's option A, when in reality, I know it's option A. I might say it's probably this one, when it is, without a doubt, most definitely that one. Or I'll say it might be, when I know with 100% certainty that it will be. I also tend to preemptively offer people an out of whatever I'm suggesting. We could maybe go to this place for dinner, but it's fine if you want to go somewhere else instead. Essentially, I tend to keep things slightly vague and open to change, rather than specific, confirmed, wrapped up, and final. And all of this leads me to sounding unsure of what I'm talking about, or indecisive about what I think we should do, even when I'm not. And sometimes people doubt me because of it. People doubt me because it sounds like I'm doubting myself. If this sounds familiar at all, it's probably not an ideal situation for you, just like it isn't for me. I don't love this trait about myself, especially since I feel like a fairly confident person in general. I just don't always sound like one, and it's been something that I've been working on improving for a while. So how do you stop sounding unsure of yourself when you know you're not? Well, to figure out how to get better at this, first we have to understand why it's happening. For me, I'm pretty sure all of this stems from being overly flexible, overly agreeable, and overly accommodating as a person. I don't like telling people what to do or how things have to be. I don't want to force my opinion or decision that they may not want or agree with onto them. I shy away from giving blunt, insensitive answers. All in all, I don't want to make people uncomfortable, and so I tend to communicate things in a way that leaves the door open for them to push back on what I'm saying, if they want to. And often, this just ends up sounding like I'm unsure of myself. At the same time, I also find myself sounding hesitant and indecisive because I really don't want to make the wrong decision. I'm often reluctant to make the final call, out of fear that people won't like my choice. Or I'll make the decision, but I won't sound super committed or confident about it. Although, to be clear, this isn't always the case. If there's one option that's clearly better than all the others, then making that decision is easy. I just sound a lot more indecisive when the choice is difficult, like when there are only good options to choose from, or when there are only bad options to choose from. And finally, one other thing that gets me is that I usually don't feel fully confident in my opinion until someone agrees with me. Even if I'm 99% sure that I'm making the best decision possible, there's always still that lingering bit of doubt whenever I communicate it. Have you ever been presenting something that you're confident about, and you're not sure if it's landing, but then someone nods in agreement and you instantly feel relief and validation? Oh great, they agree. They understand. For me, it's usually like that when I'm sharing my opinion or making a decision. I instantly become a lot more self-assured in what I'm talking about as soon as I see someone nod in agreement. That little bit of confirmation from someone can make a world of difference. So I'd say these are my big 3 reasons as to why I can often sound unsure of myself. And if you find that you're in the same boat as me, I'm sure these reasons apply to you as well. And since we're trying to get better at sounding more self-assured, here are 3 tips that have really helped me with that. Tip number 1, focus on ending your sentences with a downward inflection. Like I said before, ending your sentences with an upward inflection is almost like putting an unnecessary question mark at the end of it. And this is probably the biggest thing that makes me sound unsure of myself, but ending with a downward inflection is a really simple and effective way to sound more sure of yourself. And the best part about it is you only have to focus on doing one simple thing, ending the last syllable of your sentence in a lower tone than the one before it. It can be intimidating and complicated trying to convince someone of something. wrong. But with this, you don't have to worry about what you're saying specifically. You just have to focus on how you say it, how you end your sentences. Much less intimidating and much less complicated. Now, I can also get hesitant and indecisive if I have to be the decision maker. Like I said, I don't want to force a potentially unpopular decision on everyone. But I've noticed another thing that helps you sound more sure of yourself in these cases is to frame what you're saying in terms of a recommendation. Think of yourself as being in an advisory role. You're not the president who has to make the tough final decision. You're his or her advisor, trusted for their insight and expertise. Explaining why you think something is the best option is a great way to sound more sure of yourself. You can also think about it this way. You're not making the final decision for everyone without their say. You're making your recommendation on what you think the decision should be, and then leaving it to them to confirm if they don't agree. If they don't say anything, then that's what you'll be doing. You've essentially made the decision while framing it as a recommendation. And finally, I think people sound most unsure of themselves when they immediately double back on what they've just said. Hey, wanna go out sometime? Or not. Only if you want to. They give an out right after they make their decision or request, and that's very accommodating of them. But it also makes you sound extremely unconfident. Now, I don't like putting people in a position where they might feel bad if they want to say no. I think even if you're being polite, asking a question that's too direct or assuming that they'll be fine with your decision can still make people uncomfortable. And so I still think it's considerate and courteous to provide them with a note sometimes. But this can also be communicated in a way that doesn't detract from you sounding sure of yourself. And I think an easy yet effective way to do this is to rearrange when you give the out in the sentence. Rather than adding it at the end, start with it at the beginning. So what do all these tips look like? Well, they can take what I said earlier, specifically this. We could maybe go to this place for dinner, but it's fine if you want to go somewhere else instead, to this. I'm happy to go anywhere you'd like, but I've heard this place is amazing, and I think we should go there. Massive difference. I'm basically saying the exact same thing, but now I sound much more confident and decisive. And the best part is, I don't feel like I'm straying out of my comfort zone or crossing any of the boundaries that caused me to sound unsure in the first place. I'm still being agreeable and accommodating, and I'm not forcing my decision on them. I'm leaving it open for them to confirm if they're happy or push back if they're not happy. But now, I just sound so much more sure of myself. And if you start incorporating these tips, you will be too. Oh, one last thing. It's not great to be indecisive or sound unsure of yourself, but it's not always such a bad thing either. Have you ever come across someone who was extremely confident in what they were saying, and then they turned out to be completely wrong? Personally, I feel like that's much worse. Yeah, it's hard sometimes to have faith in someone who sounds unsure of themselves, but I think it's even harder to regain trust in someone who's confidently made poor or wrong decisions on a regular basis. So while I've been working on sounding more self-assured in how I speak, at the end of the day, I would much rather be cautiously right than confidently wrong. And if that means that I sound unsure of myself from time to time, so be it. Anyway, that's it for today. If this resonated with you or you found this insightful, your thumbs up is really appreciated. Consider subscribing for more videos on personal development and self-improvement. And let me know in the comments if sounding unsure of yourself is something that you've struggled with too, or you don't have to if you don't want to. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.